everyone. This is a throwaway account because I don't want anyone to identify me. So, I, 28, female, recently found out that my husband, 29, male, was cheating on me. I'm obviously upset and we are currently separated. Recently, our families and friends found out the reason for our separation and have been really ripping into him. My husband, soon to be ex, is livid and saying I'm the jerk for trash talking him to everyone and that I have ruined his life by being petty and immature. I know what he did was wrong, but I feel terrible for what he's going through right now, and I want to know if I should apologize or not. A few other things also happened that I think are relevant, so I'm going to give some more context. We live in a really small town, think Midwest USA, the type where everyone knows everyone. I'm not going to say too much about our location because, again, privacy. I'll call my husband George, and his affair partner will be Megan, 29, female. George and I got married 2 years ago in the winter of 2022. We went to the same university out of state from 2012 onwards, but only started dating in 2016 when we started working in the same city. He did have a habit of checking out other women the way 20-somethings usually do, but he always said it didn't mean anything. And I let it go too because I didn't want to be insecure and crazy. I'm not originally from here, but George wanted to move closer to his family after uni, and I moved with him after getting married. I honestly didn't mind it. Luckily, my field let me work from home, and George joined his family's business. I also get along great with my in-laws, and they have always treated me like their own daughter. The problem started about 3 months after our wedding, so spring 2022. I had gotten a promotion, which meant my hours got extended, and I spent a lot of time holed up in my home office. I guess I probably neglected him during this time, and he started going out with his co-workers after work a lot more, working more hours too. He probably wasn't actually working now that I think of it. And we grew pretty distant. I tried talking about it with him, and I have been on the internet before, so the thought of him having an affair definitely did cross my mind. Again, I didn't want to accuse him of something like that. Going through each other's phones was off the table, and there was never really any other evidence except his distance and my own gut. Always listen to your gut, kids. We were supposed to spend Christmas 2022 at my in-laws' family home, where they host a really huge party to which almost every family in town is invited. This is where I met Megan for the first time. She was a guest at our wedding, but I didn't really meet her or notice her then. She had been in the same school as him since elementary, and it turns out that they dated briefly in high school. I wasn't too bothered by this. At least I tried, not to be a cool girl act and all. We're both adults and high school was years ago, but George was acting really weird around her the whole time. I thought he was maybe worried that I would be upset or something. I tried to be engaging and extra friendly to her to show that their history didn't bother me. But Megan was being weird and dismissive and eventually just walked away. Around this time, George and I also started fighting more, and I tried putting more effort into the relationship because I had settled into my new role at work more. I was able to manage my time better, and I decided my resolution for 2023 was going to be to put more effort into our relationship. I started by always trying to have some fancy dinner recipe or something ready for him when he got home. Started putting more effort into my looks and overall paying more attention to our relationship than I had been the last few months. This was met with disdain and dismissal. Our intimate life also took a huge hit, which I think bothered me the most because he had always been so touchy and attracted to me. Now, even if I initiated, he'd brush me off. The thought of him having some sort of affair again started creeping into my mind. Fast forward to July 2022, and suddenly there's a huge shift in his behavior. He's once again the George I knew in college. He started coming home on time for starters and started appreciating the food I had cooked and complimenting my appearance. I was actually so shocked by it that I sort of just broke down one night over dinner and asked what had changed. He looked shocked and we had a long talk. I laid everything out on the table, how I knew I had been busy but tried putting more effort into him, how much his distance bothered me, etc., etc. He apologized and told me he had just been bothered by how little attention I paid him, and, shockingly, how he felt kind of insecure at how much I started earning with my promotion. For context, his family business is wildly successful, and the family is something like small-town royalty here. This will also be relevant later. But George said it apparently made him feel like I didn't need him. But after seeing how much effort I had put in for us, he realized he was being ridiculous and decided that he loved me too much to care. I was over the moon, honestly. It felt like the weight of the world had just lifted off my shoulders. The next few months were amazing. I felt like we were college kids with the biggest crushes on each other again. Unfortunately, as you can probably tell from the title, this did not last. January of 2023 was when my whole life came crumbling down. About a week after New Year's, I was working from home when there was a knock at my door. George was at work again, and I wasn't expecting him back for some time, so I didn't know what to expect. When I get to the door, I see Megan, of all people, standing there, looking tense. I hadn't seen her since my in-laws' Christmas party more than a year ago, and suddenly she was standing at my door. I kind of had a pit in my stomach because I knew whatever she was here for could not be good. She had one of those big manila envelopes in her hand and, without any sort of formal greeting, asked to come inside to speak to me. I was so out of it at this point still that I sort of just nodded and let her into the living room. When I tell you nothing could have prepared me for what she pulled out. Ultrasounds from her OBGYN, one of only 2 in our town, so very easily identifiable. She also had a positive pregnancy test and some more medical reports inside, including a paternity test. The father was, you guessed it, George. I think I just kind of went into shock at this point because the only thing I could think to say, why are you showing me these? By this point, I sort of knew what was happening, but my brain just couldn't cope with the information yet. Megan said she wanted to get in touch with George first, but then he had broken up with her about 6 months ago and completely avoided her since then. Again, I was sort of taken aback and asked her what she meant. It was starting to click in my head, though, all those months of ignoring me and being an all-round terrible husband, and I could only think of my future steps, i.e., divorce, of course. She started telling me the whole story, and I recorded it on my phone because I had read way too many of these stories, and I knew I needed to have some sort of evidence later on. I'm not going to write everything down here because some stuff is just too personal to be putting out onto the internet. But basically, Megan and George reconnected when we moved back to his hometown. He had reached out to her on Instagram a couple of months after our wedding, telling her she looked amazing at our wedding and that he'd love to meet for coffee to catch up. This led to an entire 6-month affair in which he had told her lies about me being controlling and manipulative, lazy, and all sorts of things along those lines. He also told her he missed when they dated in high school and that he always thought that she was the one that got away. He'd promised her that he would leave me for her and they'd have kids together. I don't want children, something my husband knows and agreed to early on in our relationship. When she started pressing him for a timeline, though, he would keep giving excuses and brushing her off. Eventually, in July last year, he dumped her to focus on his marriage. She was upset, of course, but like I said earlier, George's family is pretty influential in these parts, and she didn't think it was worth stirring up the trouble. She realized she was pregnant a few months ago and since then had been trying to get to George for some sort of help or support, only to have him ignore and block her everywhere. She finally had enough and showed up at my house to tell me herself. Partly out of revenge, I'm sure. I took pictures of everything she had brought and had her send me screenshots of all their conversations from during the affair and had her recording to boot. I thanked her and asked her if she could please keep it to herself for a couple more weeks until I figured out what to do. The next couple of days I spent pretending everything was fine and told George I was going to visit my family. They live in California for the weekend. He didn't question me, and I instead booked a hotel nearby. I spent the weekend setting up meetings with lawyers and getting my head on right. Finally, I found a lawyer I liked and started the process of getting papers written up. The state where I live is unfortunately a no-fault state, but I didn't really care. I just wanted to get away from him as soon as possible, and we didn't have any children or shared property. Our house was his parents', and I had no interest in keeping it. On Monday, I confronted him. He denied it at first, of course, but eventually broke when I kept pulling out evidence and finally showed him Megan's recording. This is where the waterworks started, and he was begging me not to leave him and that he made a mistake. I told him it was too late and that I had already filed for divorce and sent him my lawyer's contact information. I picked up some of my stuff and went back to the hotel. A few weeks later, the papers were finally drafted and he was served while he was at work. Up until now, he hadn't told his family. Mine knew, but didn't know the full story yet. But everyone at his family business saw, of course. His parents called me immediately and asked me what was going on. I told them that I found out that he was having an affair and that I wanted to end it. They were just as shocked as I was and asked me for proof. I just sent them everything I had got from Megan. This is where I may be the a-hole. My in-laws were so angry on my behalf and kept on apologizing. They were so ashamed of their son and told me they would make sure he faced the consequences of his actions. I wasn't too sure what they meant, but thanked them and hung up. Things were quiet for a few days, and then I suddenly woke up to my phone blowing up. It was my husband and a few of my friends and relatives-in-law. I opened a text from one of my friends first, where she was telling me to switch on my TV. I was shocked when I did. Apparently, my mother-in-law and father-in-law had decided to go on the local news station talk show. The host was an old friend of father-in-law. And give a small interview calling out their son and how ashamed they were of him and that their business name, does not support these values. The interview also had a few jokes at George's expense. It was mostly the older locals who watch this show. Thank you, streaming services. But gossip like this spreads like wildfire, of course. George lost his job at the family business. Our friends and most of the locals shunned him, and his parents were not supporting him either. He sent me several texts telling me that I was petty and vindictive and that I had gone way too far, even though he had changed so much over the past half year. Honestly, I did not expect his parents to be so harsh dealing with their own son, but I can't say I'm upset about it. I do feel bad that this has become such a big mess, though, and I don't want George's career and livelihood to be in jeopardy. So, AITA? Update 1. Hi, I'm back for an update. It's only been a week since my first post, but I have got so many messages and comments already. I wasn't really expecting this. I just wanted a place to vent and maybe a stranger's perspective. Thank you to everyone who responded. First of all, it was validating to learn that nobody thought this was my fault. He was the person to step outside of our marriage after all, not me. I have had a lot of friends and family reach out to me over the past few days. Also, to clarify, it was a local news channel, so not everyone might know about this. It seems someone leaked all the evidence, screenshots and pictures, to the town, and I'd put my money on his younger sister. Most have been supportive, and only a couple have said I was too harsh on George. I blocked them, LOL. I have started getting a lot angrier at him and our situation, and I no longer feel that bad about what he's going through. For now, our lawyers are in talks about how to go about the divorce. In other news, it turns out Megan will be suing him for child support. I guess she finally decided to go for the legal route. I won't say I completely forgive her. She decided to have an affair with a married man when she knew he had a wife, and she came to our wedding. But I can't say I'm that angry at her either. It's more so indifferent for now. I, on the other hand, have been doing fine. I'm not really happy or sad. I have just been sort of numb. I have started applying for jobs in cities outside of our state. There is no need for me to stay in this tiny town anymore, and I have always wanted to live and work on the East Coast anyway. So yeah, not sure how that's going to go. I think I need some time to focus on myself, so I don't think I'll be updating here for a while, if at all. Update 2. Small update, even though it's only been a couple of days and I said I wouldn't be back for a bit. I was out doing a bit of grocery shopping today. I'm still staying in the hotel, but decided to upgrade to a suite, so I have a tiny mini kitchen and all included since I'm probably going to be here for a little while longer. I wanted to get some bread and fruits and stuff so I could cook at least a few of my meals myself. And who do I see but George? I tried to pretend I didn't see him and ducked into another aisle, but it was too late. He called my name and started jogging towards me, and I sort of just froze in place. Turns out I was not ready to see him face to face. He asked if we could talk, to which I just replied that he could contact me through my lawyer if he needed anything. He had a literal meltdown at this, like some sort of overgrown toddler, and started talking about how he was stupid and that he loved me and couldn't live without me. I was sort of disgusted by his begging and just stayed silent. When he realized he wasn't about to get a reaction out of me, he got pissed and started to rant on about how I ruined his life and image, how he lost his job and the whole town was mocking him now because I couldn't just shut up and work things out in private like a mature adult. LOL. He was causing a scene and other people started gathering around us. I told him I never meant for his parents to announce what he did on TV, and that I only told them about the situation when they pressed me to know, and that I felt I owed some sort of an explanation to them for how welcoming of me they had been. I also added that he should get himself together, and if he keeps harassing me in public, I'm going to file for a restraining order. A little something I picked up from lurking on these subs. I didn't wait for a reply and left, and he luckily didn't follow me out. I texted his mom to let her know what had just happened too, and I threatened him with a restraining order. She is such a sweetheart, bless her, and she told me they'd take care of it and not to worry. I'm sure he got himself ripped a new one by them again, and he's acting so pathetic. I don't even feel bad like before. That's the update for now. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been about 3 months since my last update and a lot has gone down since then. I thought I'd bring everyone up to speed here since I've got so much support on my posts. For starters, Megan had her baby a month ago and it's a sweet baby girl. I feel terrible that the child was born into such a rough situation, but I have total faith in my former in-laws that they will do their absolute best to give her love and support. Megan had sued George for child support. There was a paternity test conducted to make sure the baby was his, and of course she was. Just a week ago, Megan won the case, and George will now be paying quite a significant amount every month. I don't know much else about the situation, how involved he'll be in the baby's life and all, but to be honest, I don't care. I do wish that sweet little girl the best, though. None of this is her fault. As for me, I got an offer just last week for a job in Portland. I start next month and will be working remotely from here until my divorce is settled. My lawyer has handled mostly everything, so there are just some loose ends to tie up now. I think I'll be out of here and fully settled by the beginning of next year. It's been a really weird time, but all around, I think it's for the best. I still keep in touch with George's parents sometimes. They have been nothing but kind to me, and I'm going to really miss them when I do leave this place behind. As for George, he can go kick rocks. I do not care what he does or what happens to him, and I don't intend to know either. For everyone asking me about my own parents, they came up to visit me from California this week too and have been super supportive of this whole process. They liked George, but always seemed to keep him at a distance. Something about him made my mom uneasy. And while they didn't think he was the most amazing guy, they never expected this out of him. The moral of the story is to always listen to your gut and listen to your mom. I am not really looking into getting into a relationship just yet. My divorce isn't even finalized and I haven't been single for ages. I think the best course of action would be for me to focus on myself, work more in my career, and take up some old habits I had stopped doing in my free time. I recently got into hiking and have started taking painting lessons, and I spend a lot of my free time at thrift stores in nearby towns and cities, basically just exploring the area. A lot of people here were kind enough to ask me how I was doing emotionally as well, and I have to say it's not as bad as you would think. It turns out our relationship has been really draining on me the past few years, and I feel like I can breathe again. Like so many of you here suggested, I did end up starting therapy a couple of months ago, and it does seem to be going all right. It turns out I had some issues with people pleasing and insecurity, which would explain why I tolerated a lot of crap from George for so long. I have been working on that too, so everything is good on that front. While I did say I'm not looking to officially date anyone anytime soon, I did meet someone. I'll call him Jake, 30, male, and we met in the hotel's cafe. He was staying here for a couple of weeks for some business, and we got to chatting after seeing each other a few times for coffee. Over the past week, especially, we have been hanging out a lot. He even ran into my family since they were visiting. It's nothing serious, of course, but I am excited to see where this is going to go. He's smart and charming, works a great job, and recently got divorced as well. We have a lot of the same hobbies and interests, and he lives only an hour's car ride away from Portland. He left for home a couple of days ago, but we have been keeping in touch. This might just be the infatuation phase talking, but he is absolutely everything I could ask for in a guy. I know, it's only been 2 weeks. He just seems a lot more mature and put together than my ex, and a lot sweeter as well. He never interrupts me when I'm talking, never lets his eye wander when he's with me, and is actually emotionally vulnerable. If nothing else, I'm looking forward to getting to know him more. So I've got a lot to look forward to, and I'm so ready to leave George and my old life with him behind. I initially came here for some sort of validation and found a really strong, supportive community, which I am really grateful for. I have been treating this space as my personal digital diary, and it's honestly been so helpful. Thank you to everyone who commented and reached out with the sweetest messages. I will most likely not be updating this any further unless something really insane happens, which I doubt. So that's it for now. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.